Boom. Hello. We should be live now. Hello, everybody. Happy Monday. Happy Monday. All right, I just want to make sure we're live, and then we'll get kicking. But before we get kicking, I guess I'll just start off right away. Thank you, Mr. Frackskull, for your $5 patronage. I have made you an official thing, and there is your name proudly there. That's a thank you for support for the Admiral Murphy channel. So thank you. All right, now we can go back to this screen. So yes, we were supposed to have, I was supposed to crush the communist pagan situations yesterday, but I think he chickened out. He got scared of my mad skills, and I think he needs more time to practice. So we have to reschedule that because clearly it did not happen yesterday. So hopefully we get that rescheduled soon so we can bring that to you guys at a later date, because I like Twilight Struggle. In fact, I might play it on here later. Maybe. We'll see. I have a lot of stuff I want to get done today, but I don't know what all I want to do. So, otherwise, what's been going on with me as of late? Well, I'm happy to report I have just wrapped up dungeon mastering the Hoard of the Dragon Queen and the Rise of Tiamat adventures. They're part of one campaign, Tyranny of the Dragons. But anyway, I just finished that up on Saturday. They fought Tiamat and sent her back to hell. So that I will have a video coming out shortly. I want to talk about these because if you're looking to get into D&D and you need something to dungeon master because you don't want to write your own, you're like, oh, I want to. You might be in my boat, where my boat was I wanted to dungeon master a pre-written campaign before I started writing my own, and this was the one I went with. So I want to do a video on that. Hello, everybody. But yeah, so I want to give some advice because I did this on my first run through. And I was pretty happy with it, but there were some changes I would have made, which I kind of started to do on a second playthrough that never got finished for this. So I want to make a video throwing it out there. Hey, what do I think you should do in this book, and what should you not? And before I even make that video, I'll just say you can throw this whole book out and just do whatever you want with it, because that's kind of how I treat the books. They're kind of just like guides at that point. So that video is going to come out along with another one, pretty much just saying why you should get into D&D and roleplay games, because they're pretty fun, and I've had huge success rates with new people getting them into D&D. And then my next campaign, where's that book? Here it is. My next campaign I gotta start getting ready to run is the Storm King's Thunder, which has been the one I'm probably most excited for now. I really like this adventure, having read it. These are the giants. They're the bad guys. They're cool. I like them. I like this one. Where is it? This one especially, because her evil goal is to eat a lot of things. And I just find that funny because hill giants just go around eating things, and she thinks she can get to the top of just giant society by eating everything in the world. It's just, it's such a ridiculous plot, but it makes sense coming from a hill giant. So that adventure's coming up. I do have another video. I talked about it a little bit last week. I'll show you guys again. Nothing personal. So I mentioned this gangster. The movie always comes up. I forget there's a movie for it. But I mentioned this game last week. The Nothing Personal Gangster Mafia game. I did manage to fully edit that video of our playthrough of this game. We basically pretended to be the mafia families, played through the game, and it was really fun to make. So I hope you guys enjoy that. It's fully edited. I just have to upload it to YouTube at this point, and make a thumbnail, because I don't have a thumbnail for that. And thumbnails, they're important, guys. You gotta have good thumbnails. But oh, Risk Legacy. You know what? I'm gonna talk about this game now that I see it. But yeah, that video is gonna be coming up soon. Risk Legacy. If you guys don't know, most of you probably know of Risk. Risk Legacy, though, is a really interesting game because I'm not a huge fan of just normal Risk, but I really liked this game. So the way a legacy game is different from the typical game you're used to is each of your playthroughs will affect the next game in the series. So, for example, you have your own version of Earth in this game, and as you go through and meet certain conditions, maybe somebody like takes control of a continent. I forget all the exact things you have to do, but as you go through, if you meet certain conditions during a game, you see these like closed off packets here, and you'll open these up, and you get new cards or new rules or stuff like that, and they change your game forever. And then you can see there's some tabs here, and I don't want to spoil anything because some of them are really fun to reveal. But it's cool because you get all these different factions, and when you first get the game, you decide what different powers you get that modify it, and so that's cool. I really like the legacy game. Kind of D&D took over that role as because D&D is a game that carries over from session to session. So another game though is Pandemic Legacy. If you haven't played Pandemic, it's a game where you have to treat all of the viruses that break out around the world, and it's a really fun cooperative game that can be really difficult. But in this one, it's cool because it's more narrative than I find Risk Legacy is, and the world is constantly changing. Your objectives are going to be different throughout the games, and the sad thing about the legacy games is I never have completed one fully. I've gotten about halfway in both of them. And then at that point, either we moved on to a different game or the group just kind of fell apart. But I'm happy that hasn't happened in any of my D&D campaigns. So am I the only one connecting or commenting today? You so far are, Kim Jong-un. I want to thank you. You're representing your country very well right now. Perhaps maybe another world leader will speak up. But as of right now, I only have the glorious North Korean leader. I don't think anybody else is live that is usually in the circles I watch. So people might just be busy with their Monday morning. They're sick and tired going to work. Which, by the way, I'm happy to announce I did get a job interview this week. So hopefully that goes well because I am still looking for work. So I have that later on in the week. But looks like a really cool opportunity. I might talk to you guys more about that later on. But it's with a similar group that I was with at for my internship. I interned at the Software Engineering Institute. They do a bunch of different things. I saw a bunch of games on here just now that distracted me that I recognized. Hey, there's Twilight Struggle. And I really do want a job because there's some more board games out there that I want to bring in. So there's this one, Eldritch Horror. Yeah, this one. They came out with the new expansions for it. I want it because I want to play it. This game's really fun. So basically, if you're familiar with the Cthulhu mythos, you basically go around the world trying to solve the mysteries in the world and discover, oh crap, Cthulhu's coming back. We better stop it. And then you stop it. And so it's really cool because you get to pick different characters. Like you could be this guy who's the expedition leader. You can be the actress over here. There's tons of different characters. At this point, I own all the expansions. And there's about, I want to say, 30 some characters at this point. So it has a lot of replayability. So that part's really, really fun. So that's another game I highly recommend. I think I might actually do a video for this game eventually, one of the playthrough videos. Because it's a really fun game. I like it. This was kind of like what we did before D&D. In fact, during my last D&D campaign, we did or it was 2 ago, but what does it matter, you guys? We did a session that was in the Eldritch Horror universe. They got teleported because of this orb to like 1930s San Francisco. And then they had to try to find a way back, but it was in the Cthulhu mythos. So they were taking on like Deep One creatures and all that. I really like these minis. I didn't know you could get minis for this game. I recognize some of these from other Eldritch Horror games, like Mansions of Madness. That's a fun one. I do kind of like the cardboard tokens they give you, though, because they just have nice artwork. And plus, if you don't have any painting skills, I know these minis, when you get them, they're not painted, so you have to paint them. But I have been enjoying painting. The next thing I want to do is I want to start making terrain. And I did that. I don't have a picture of it, sadly, for you guys. But I did, for the Tiamat summoning, I had a bunch of towers set up. And so I made them out of cardboard. I spray painted them up. And so all my wizards who were doing the summoning were on towers. So my players had to find a way to get up there and deal with them. And so at this point, I want to make, there's a village in the Storm King's Thunder that's really cool that I want to make a town for. Let's see if I can find a picture. Yeah, here it is. So I want to try to make this village out of actual props. So eventually I want to see what I would need to do to make this. So that's kind of my next big arts and crafts project for D&D. How did the debate with pagan situations go? I kind of missed it. I thought it would be on YouTube, but it wasn't. We did not get to do it yesterday. Something popped up for pagan, or he chickened out. So we are working on rescheduling that. But I hope to get that to you guys, because I was really looking forward to that. I think it would be a really cool thing. Not only like as a viewer, if I was watching something like that, I'd be really interested. So I think it'd be a fun thing to shoot for you guys. Even if you're not familiar with the game, it's just cool because if you like history at all, it's just a game that really works well. So hopefully we can get that to you guys soon. I am waiting to hear back from Pagan when he wants to reschedule. And luckily for me, my schedule is a lot more open this week. Because last week, my girlfriend was visiting, and so I had to spend some quality time with her. So I actually didn't get to follow up a lot on news and politics. So unless somebody has a story that really caught their eye, I'm kind of out of the loop and playing catch up. The only thing I really heard of was Hillary was bitching about how she didn't win the election over in India, which I find funny because everybody still cares about her. And my favorite thing is when people complain, "Oh, why are you still talking about her?" And it's usually the Democrats saying that. It's like, because she's still talking, and because she's still making tons of money that she funnels into your organization. I don't as much get it when Republicans complain about it, but I find it's more important for the Democrats themselves or the progressive base to kind of complain about that, because if they want to win again, they kind of need Hillary to shut up. I think I even saw a mainstream news article that was like, hey, Hillary should probably go away at this point. I think it was USA Today published that, and I thought that was funny. Controversial YouTuber The Right Wing Opinion recently released a video talking about how it's objectively wrong to like pineapple on pizza. I could debate that, because pineapple on pizza is gross. My parents, when we used to go get pizza all the time, they still do this too every once in a while, but I used to only like plain pizza, just like cheese on pizza. I'm good. I've kind of expanded now. I like pepperoni. I like bacon. Bacon on pizza is brilliant. Not like strips of bacon. I don't know if anybody does that. I like the bacon bits. But I've done that. Sausage, done that. That's okay. I had one bad sausage pizza once from Domino's, and it's Domino's, so I guess I shouldn't have expected much. They kind of suck. But they like, if we ever got like half a pizza, they like to do the ham and pineapple thing, and I'm like, that's the grossest shit ever. I'm like, why? Why do you want pineapple on a pizza? Ew. I'm okay with meats on a pizza, but not weird ass fruits. No, put that on something else, not a pizza. I'm the same with Chicago pizza. I think Chicago pizza is really weird, and me and my girlfriend will argue that because she was in the Chicago area for quite some time, and she'll defend that pizza. I won't. It's weird ass pizza. Fun fact: Hawaiian pizza was actually made in Canada. Oh, that explains so much. Those damn Canadians screwing everything up. I like stuffed crust pizza, though. Stuffed crust pizza is really good. If I had to rank the pizza like chains, you know, the popular ones everybody knows, like Papa John's, Pizza Hut, and Domino's, my ordering would go Papa John's is number one. I like Papa John's. I don't get them as much because in my area, the closest Papa John's is right out of delivery range, I believe. Number two is Pizza Hut. I like Pizza Hut. And then number three, by like a poopy long shot, is Domino's because they suck. Now, sadly, when I was at college, that was the only pizza place in the area that was cheap and delivered. So I got that a lot more than I would have wished. Plus, my girlfriend did work there for a time, so I felt kind of obligated to, you know, support her out when I was thinking about getting some pizza. So I'd order from there. But let me see. Also, Trudeau is a big fan of Hawaiian pizza. That explains why I don't like Hawaiian pizza. Damn Trudeau, the dictator of Canada. Hello, Pagan Situations. He's got the courage to come back. Pagan, we were discussing the conspiracy. You said you were busy, but I think you're wavering in your communist ideas. I don't know. I think you're worried capitalism's about to conquer your pagan communist beliefs. But yeah, Kim Jong-un was asking about it. So I told everybody that you were busy and that we need to work on a rescheduling. I'm a lot more open right now, Pagan, this week. So whatever time works for you, we could do that. You got lost in the woods? Didn't you have a map? Pagan, everybody knows when you go to the woods, you need a map. And if you don't have a map, you bring one of those pocket knives or whatever and you mark trees. That way, if you get lost, you can at least find your way back. Or you do like ribbons. See, that's what I do in D&D. We put ribbons on things as we walk through. Democratic dictatorships are the only way. I agree. The rabble needs to be controlled. We need to control the rabble. See, now I'm interested in hearing Pagan's Lost in the Woods story. By the time we had cell signal, I sent you the message letting you know I wasn't going to make it home. Well, at least you got out of the woods, I hope, unless you're messaging still from the woods. Because that would stink. I forget the times, Pagan, you told me you're good. I assume they're still the same. I'm pretty much open this week in the evenings. So if you want to do it this week, we can. I think I don't even know if I'm busy this Saturday. I don't know if I'm doing D&D or not. This is kind of like my freebie week. So I'm taking full advantage of it. My plan this week, as I was mentioning to you guys, is I have a whole list of things I want to get done. One of them is I got to clean out my basement. After we did D&D yesterday, I was like, wow, all my D&D stuff's everywhere. It's a mess. I want to clean that up. Basically, now that a campaign is wrapped. So I want to do that. I've been working on a new news intro for the DP Action News segment. I didn't like it at first, so I've kind of like gone, so I'm kind of figuring out what I want to do. Yeah, man, maybe Tuesday, Wednesday. Otherwise, I'll have to wait till the weekend. Yeah, let me know. Let me think. Tomorrow's Tuesday. Tuesday would be better for me, depending on when, because I potentially have a job interview Wednesday or Thursday. But I assume if we started later on Wednesday, that would work. But hey, Kim Jong-un, don't hate James, okay? He's one of your fellow communist peoples. I mean, you can hate him if you want. But yeah, if you wanna, we can figure it out. You stole Anne from... Whoa, I didn't know Pagan managed to steal Anne from Kim Jong-un. Damn, Pagan, that's an accomplishment. I left Dennis Rodman to be with her. Wow. You know what? I definitely see why Kim Jong-un really hates on Pagan now. That hurts. But that's an accomplishment. If you manage to steal a chick from a dictator and live... Like you get a medal, you get a plaque, you put that on your wall. That's an accomplishment. Also, the thing we got to discuss, Pagan, is if we want to do it on a single stream or if we want to do it on separate. Because I have it set up, I could do it. I think I can do it. We could be on a video call while we go. The only advantage or disadvantage for either is if we're on the same video call, we can't really narrate our cards as much. So, but at least we can communicate back and forth, and we can trash talk each other. So we could do that, or we could separately stream each of our games. I guess we could still separate. We could not be in a video call during the games, and then we'd be able to talk to the audience. I would just make it, though. I'm definitely not watching my chat during the game because I ain't going to cheat. I don't need to cheat. Sup, Nicholas Reynolds? Oh, and I need to know Pagan Situation's confidence in his Twilight Struggle ability. Because in tournament play, I know, the U.S. player, that would be me, gets a handicap of 2 influence at the start of a game. I don't know if Pagan knows this or not. So I would get that. I don't know how many times Pagan has played. I'm willing to give up the 2 handicap influence. If Pagan's feeling a little like, a little bit. I don't know how much Pagan's played, if he's like super in the know. I've played like 6 times. Okay, I will not take the 2 extra influence. Yeah, I see the thing I like about Twilight Struggle is it's fun against, like, I've only played it against my brother. It's hard to get other people into it because once you know some of the cards, you're going to stomp on the person until they kind of get familiar at least with the cards. So I do my best when I play with somebody new to kind of tell them, hey, don't dump all your influence in this country because I might get a card that will take it all out of there eventually. Let's see. And not much working. Well, Nicholas Reynolds, I hope work is going well for you. I have no clue what you do, so I'm just going to make it up here. Let's see. I got to make this really good. I'm going to say Nicholas Reynolds is a spy, and he's currently working on hacking the U.S. elections. Kim Jong-un, you should debate in D&D. You can roll a die and see how well your arguments land. I've had that happen before. Most times, though, when I do role-playing stuff, we just kind of role-play it out, but every once in a while I'll make a die roll happen, especially if somebody's describing to me what happens. I do tend to like the role-play aspects of D&D more and more. What up, Lore Reloaded? That would make sense about Nicholas with Kim Jong-un also in your chat. Yeah, this is the hangout, I guess, for the hackers of the U.S. election, because I don't like Hillary. So I did not cave and vote for her. I'll throw that out there. So everybody who thought I should have voted for Hillary to stop Trump, I'm very sorry. I disappointed you, and I sat out the presidential election. I'm still torn up about it today every day. People try to guilt me. But what up, Lore? I saw you did an O-Birth video today. I haven't got a chance to look at it yet. For those of you who don't know, Lore Reloaded does a very cool Star Trek lore channel. And he's one of the fellow Resistance members to the Discovery show. Though I don't know, I think I might not like it as much as Lore. It was a little more, I feel like Lore was a little more open-minded to it towards the end. I kind of, at that point when I was watching it at the end, I was like, eh. But we both really hated that one episode with Lorca, when they basically, the last episode Lorca was in, that was like the show I wrote off Discovery final. I was like, nope, I'm kind of done. I'm going to force myself to watch the last 2 episodes because I'm reviewing it. But I remember Lore was pissed when that episode came out. I was like, okay, I'm not the only one, because I felt like I should like it because, you know, it was like the series finale episode in a way, even though they tacked on 2 episodes. See, yeah, that was a joke video. Doing a serious video tonight. Needed a break and saw you were online, so I thought I would stop by. Well, thank you for stopping by. Truck driver, but I like your figment of job. Oh, a truck driver hacker. That's what Nicholas Reynolds is. He drives around hacking things. That's cool. If I didn't do this for a living, it would have been the episode. I would have written it off as well. Yeah, see, that's kind of like, people don't get when you're on YouTube, because a lot of people are like, why are you still watching Discovery? Why do you still care? Blah, blah, blah. When you're on YouTube, you kind of feel obligated to watch it. Plus, here's the thing. I felt obligated to watch Discovery, even though, like, even in the beginning, I was not interested in the show after everything I had seen. Like, I kind of had written it off, even when I heard it was a prequel, because I was like, oh, I saw how the JJs went. Like, I don't hate the J.J. Abrams movies. Into Darkness is the only one I hate. The other 2, I'm okay with. In fact, I like Beyond quite a bit. But they're not what I wanted out of Star Trek. and I wanted something post Voyager. So already I was kind of into that. I hated the Cleon design, but I felt obligated to watch it because I loved every other Star Trek series. If I messed up my camera and tilted it above me, I have all of my Eagle Moss ships up there. I've got models all over the place. I actually got the JJ here. I'll pull it over here. Hopefully it doesn't fall off the stand because it always does. I even have the JJ model. I'm curious because I think, Laura, you talk a lot about starships. What you think of the JJ model? I know a lot of people hate it. This is actually my favorite Constitution model. Which I find funny because like so many people hate on the JJ movies, but this one I'm like, I like this one. It actually made me like the Constitution class because I never really cared for it. Now I've ended up liking it a lot more because of that. But I felt obligated to at least give Discovery a shot, and I remember the first night I had watched it because I knew I had to talk about it on my channel because I think I had done an Orville review at that point. But I remember watching the first episode of Discovery, and from the first like minute on, I was weirded out. The show was so different from what Star Trek had been, but not only that, just as a show, it was boring. Especially because when you think, hey, this is going to be a show on the Cleon War, the Cleon War should be an exciting thing to watch. But I remember once it was done, the first like 2-part episode of the Discovery, I was like, that was the boringest start to a war I've ever seen. In my country, there's only one party. It's the Kim Party. And if you don't vote, for it, you die. See, I guess maybe Hillary should have done that. She would have gotten more votes, I guess. Where did you buy the JJ Verse model from? I like it revamped, but I never had a connection to the Constitution, so I can take it or leave it. I got this at Target when the first JJ movie hit. I remember before I even saw what the JJ movies were about, I just knew they were redoing Star Trek, like the original series as a movie. The first time I actually got to see the JJ ship was this model, so I picked it up because I was a ship geek at the time. I loved them. So I got it at Target. Of course, Target's probably not carrying them anymore, so you can find it online. In fact, I have a feeling, you guys, if you hear a crash in a bit, my stand is not great for that ship, so I feel like it might fall here in a bit. But let's look. Star Trek JJ Enterprise model. Oh, this is a cool model. This is an actual light-up one. Let's go to shopping and see if we can find it. This is the Eagle Moss one. I have that one as well. I forget which company did this. I have the box still somewhere. Where is it? I know it's a real thing. This is the original movie Enterprise. I have that one, actually. Whoa, they make a big-ass next-gen ship. I didn't know that. That's cool. Here it is. This is the one I got. It was the 2009 movie Playmates electronic one. So it's like 120 on eBay. I don't think I'd pay that much for it unless I was like a real hardcore ship collector. But I like this model. It's a nice one. Let's see. Discovery is Days of Our Lives in Space. They talk about the war in the background and we rarely see it. Yeah, that's how I felt about Discovery. Like, the overall problem... And I didn't use this in my review when I talked about it because I felt like I was plagiarizing it off of somebody else. But I liked their quote they made. There's this group out there that does some Star Trek videos. What are they called? I subscribe to them. They do a series called Trek It or Wreck It, where they basically, at the time when the Discovery started up, when it was like airing the same weeks as Orville, they would do a kind of comparison between the two, or at least talk about both, and then say which one trekked it or wrecked it. And so it was basically, it wasn't reviewing necessarily the quality, just if it stood up to the ideals that Trek had from Gene Roddenberry. And so that was kind of the stipulation for saying if it trekked it or wrecked it. But it was a really cool series. I liked watching it. I didn't always agree with them, but it was an interesting conversation to see. And on their like last episode that they did for Discovery, they kept commenting on one of the lines that was made in the last episode by Georgiou, talking to Michael, where she was saying the problem with Michael was she didn't have follow-through. And for their entire review of the last episode, Discovery, they kept saying the problem with this show was it doesn't have follow-through. And they were right. Discovery has a bunch of ideas of what they want their show to be, but they never follow through. Same with their characters, all of that. You anything that you kind of start to like, they never completely like go with it. Like the main one I had was this really looked like it was a Section 31 show off the bat with the whole black comm badges thing, and they never mention it again. Like they make a point to point it out and go, "Hey, look, those guys have black comm badges. I've never seen that before." And you go as a viewer, or at least like, okay, so when you do writing, you put stuff in there like that to, I don't know, foreshadow things, but they didn't foreshadow anything because they never bring back the black comm badges. Now they might mention it in a future season, but it's clear right now they don't have the future seasons planned out because clearly they didn't have Discovery planned out. It was just kind of like we got to make this show release here because we've already pushed it back so much. There's been a mess in production. Unless you're wanting to strap a bomb to a dead body so that let me start that over. Unless you're wanting to strap a bomb to a dead body so those who can collect and revere their dead can blow up. Plenty of follow through there. I think that was the first videos I saw of yours, Lore, when you were reviewing that Cleon body thing. And I hadn't given it much thought because I had enough problems with the episodes otherwise. But I see, the part I had a problem with in that scene was just that they were collecting dead bodies. Because I was like, when have Cleons ever cared about bodies? And I just thought that was weird and not explained enough. So I was just like, okay. But yeah, then you point that out. I was like, wow, that's kind of messed up now. But Discovery just doesn't have follow through its plots. It wanted to do a Section 31 story, and then it was kind of like, eh. It talks about all these concepts, and it never thoroughly explores them. Like, if you're gonna do a war story, I think you need to, especially for a Star Trek show, you have to really delve into it. You got to delve into the morals and all of that. And Discovery never did. It always felt like they might briefly mention the war. And for a war show, you got to be in the war. You've got to actually be dealing with it. But most of the time, they're just talking about it. There's even an episode, which, while it's my favorite episode of Discovery, there's still some messed up parts of it. They're getting drunk at a frat party on the Discovery. And I'm like, this is in the middle of a war. What if something happens and you need to go? Most of your people are drunk. Now, maybe in the 23rd century, they have a way to deal with that. I forget if synthahol was a thing, but it didn't seem like they were drinking synthahol. So the dead bodies thing, if it was an anomaly and everything else okay, I could write that off as a cult thing. Yeah, see, the Cleons don't need to be Cleons in Discovery. They could be other aliens, and it would work way better. Same as, and if it was Cleons, put it post-Voyager, and a lot of the problems get solved. But the thing I really hate was Lorca was my favorite character, and I hate Jason Isaacs. He comes across as a huge asshole online, especially to the Trek fan base. I remember there was like something he was like trashing Trekkies for because they just weren't liking the show. Plus, he gets way too political on Twitter. I hate when celebrities get very political because I'm like, yeah, normal people aren't going to listen to you. I'm sorry. Your issues are very different from the issues of normal people. And it's just funny when they talk down to normal people for not agreeing with them. And Jason Isaacs came across as that. But I liked his character a lot. And then they ruined it just by saying, oh, he's Mirror Universe guy who's mustache twirly. Anything that you thought might have made him a complex character? Nope. He's just evil. I hated that right off of him. That's when his character got ruined for me. Yeah. Yeah, Lorca is a complex character. It's just, or at least he starts out complex, and then they just ruin him, and that was the most disappointing thing. Because I didn't like a lot of the characters in Discovery. I got okay with them towards the end with everybody really but Michael. I hated Michael. I think it was because they tried too hard to make you like Michael and make her be the one who gets everything right during the show, that it's just like, eh. So I kind of wrote off Michael for a while. And it just sucks because she's the main character of that show. So I never really wanted to the episode that worked the most was that one with Mud. where they had the drunk frat party, because it felt like everybody kind of had a part in saving the ship. My only complaint, and I made it in my review, was I think when Michael kills herself to kind of save the day, that should have been Stamets. Stamets should have done that. This is a question I've asked a lot of people, and I've yet got an actual answer. Perhaps you could. Man, I am spamming your chat. I wish they had made more. You can spam my chat as long as it's actual like comments. I don't care. If he had to be evil, him actually able to tempt Michael would have been a good time. See, this is where the Discovery problem of follow through is a failure. So I know me and you both talked about this on our own channels. Discovery, and especially in that episode, the final one with Lorca, it took a very anti-Trump like message, or it was just blatantly hitting you over the head. Trump sucks. And I might have sat out the election, not voted for Hillary, but I hate Trump. Trump is garbage. The only reason I would end up voting for Trump in the next election is if the Democrats ran somebody way worse than Hillary. Because at this point, if they ran somebody at least somewhat decent, by Trump, you're God. I don't like Trump. So there, we're putting that up front when I go to complain about how Discovery treated Trump, or at least his ideals. The problem is they are ideals that are worth discussing and debating. They're not just something you can write off. And I say that because, I mean, look at the world today. We've had a huge shift from multiculturalism, which is what the Federation is, to nationalism. I mean, look at the problems the EU's been having. They have a lot of countries wanting to leave, and part of that is a nationalist thing. And to just simply write it off, kind of like oh, Trump's a bad guy, and that's kind of how the show seems to be doing it, I feel is really cheap. I felt Discovery could have handled that issue a lot more, and I almost felt like they were with even the Klingons, because as long as you wrote it that you could at least argue for the Klingon side, because honestly, when I look at it and kind of our world today, I can see the nationalist perspective a little more than I used to. And Discovery had a chance to debate that. And that's what they did in the original series of Star Trek, is they debated those type of topics. The episodes might have taken a position, a position of one of the sides against the other, but at least when they took that position, they still made good arguments for the other. And I didn't feel Discovery did that at all. When you make your anti-Trump rhetoric a parody without actual value, you make it easy to like Trump and vote for him. Straw mans of Trump only help him. I agree. That's why I find it more important to attack Trump's policies over just this drama. Like, I don't care for the whole Stormy Daniels thing. I'm just like, whatever. I mean, we can go back in history and see tons of politicians who've had similar scandals. I am more focused on what Trump is doing in office and the policies he's putting forth that affect the people. And it's boring, but if you focus on that, you tend to get a little more people on your side. Hello, Zakaris. I missed you. Hello, heart back to you. Kim Jong-un. The best thing, in my opinion, about the Dark Souls games is most of the lore/story is hidden with context clues and seemingly minor dialogue. Do you believe this concept could work in film and TV? Yeah, I think film and TV's made that work before. The thing is, Discovery kind of does that, but it's obvious. It's really easy to pick up on what Discovery's trying to do. They leave hints. Oh, good. I'm glad I pronounced your name right. I'm pretty decent at pronouncing names, I hope. But yeah, Discovery tries to do that, but you catch on to it so easily. You know something's messed up with Lorca. And so even the Mirror Universe plot out there was kind of already over our heads, because it had leaked earlier that there was going to be a Mirror Universe episode. So it was easy to start piecing things together and go, oh, Lorca's probably Mirror Universe. And then the whole Ash Voke thing, that was so easy to tie together. And those are like the two big plot twists of the season. And they're so easy to pick up on. Oh, and the Empress being Michael's old captain. So they kind of do that, and they drop the hints, but you got to make them subtle enough that you go, oh, crap. Like, I'm going to go to Doctor Who for this. Doctor Who kind of does that. At least it did during the Tenet era the Richard Davies, is that his name? Russell Davies, whoever was writing Doctor Who really early on. But so let's look at the first season of Doctor Who when it first came back. There was an overall arc to that season. At least they were teasing what was going to go on at the end. For those who haven't seen it, or you might have forgotten, there was this term, Bad Wolf, that kept appearing in every episode during that season. Whether it was mentioned by somebody or it was just in the background. But I remember my first watch through of Doctor Who, I didn't start picking up on this whole Bad Wolf thing until about halfway through the season. And so you were just like, huh. Eventually when you pick up on it, you're like, why the hell is Bad Wolf coming back in? And you know it's going to turn up to be something eventually. And then in the last two-parter episodes, you realize what Bad Wolf symbolized. And that's a way you can kind of do these little like hidden context clues and gems in a story. And because when I go back and rewatch Doctor Who now from episode 1, I'm picking up on Bad Wolf when I missed it the first time. And they do that a lot in the early Doctor Who episodes. They'll have little strings to connect, like little Easter eggs that you might not pick up on in your first watch through, but you pick up on them later on. But yeah, the problem is they made their anti-Trump rhetoric a parody. Lorca even says during the episode he wants to make the Terran Empire great again. And the thing is, whether you made it the Terran Empire is representing the idea of nationalism or the Cleon Empire, because they kind of were doing both of those stories never fully explored that concept. Because my main thing is, I used to be very on board with the whole idea of the Federation, what they stood for. Now I'm kind of in the middle. I'm not nationalistic, but I can see the arguments for it. And so I would have loved to see that play out on the screen. Especially, the one thing I think is really up for debate that people don't really debate anymore is the whole balance of democracy against, I guess you could say, I don't want to say fascism, but autocracy. Like who gets a voice and how many people get the voice when they don't earn it. And I think I got this from the Orville episode where they went to that planet and everybody had a voice and it was just like ruled by social media. And I think that's a debate worth having. And they didn't explore that at all, because people who are fascist per se are going to argue democracy is not a good thing, because a lot of people who don't deserve a voice because they're not educated, they might not know the issue. And I don't mean to say educated like they haven't gone to school and learned things, but they might just not know about an issue. So should they really have an equal say to somebody who is an expert on said issue? And so I could see that being an argument, which they don't explore at all in Discovery. They just kind of give it a one-liner like, oh, the Federation, it's just blah, blah, blah. It has its ideals that everybody's equal, when that's not the case. And that was another thing they didn't explore. When we look at our society today, even in democratic societies, not everybody's equal. So, of course, something like the Terran Empire would just point that out and be like, equality, you guys don't even have that. So why should we just make the illusion that's a thing when in reality it's not? And so those are interesting things to debate. And Discovery just kind of like glosses over it. It throws it in as one-liners instead to do action scenes. And the action scenes get boring. That episode of Discovery with Lorca's End, where they just kind of end with a sword fight that goes on for like 5 minutes, I felt like I was watching Star Wars. And I would have rather had that time invested into telling a Trek story. And the thing is, most of my Star Trek friends, or the people I know in the Star Trek community, are hardcore Star Trek fans, and a good deal of them will overlook a lot of the complaints. And I've argued with a lot of people who do not like that I don't like Discovery, and so I don't have as many. At least I don't think I have as many Trek friends who are very anti-Discovery. I got a few, but a lot of them either just kind of like or they are still into it. I think they'd be into whatever Star Trek is put out there. Rules are for those not clever enough to subvert them. That is a great quote. I feel like if you just made that up, Pagan, that's a good quote, but I feel like that might be from something. I feel like that should be in a Star Trek episode. Like, I feel Garrick would have said something like that. There's a difference between ruled by social media / everyone having a voice. I'm firmly against deplatforming of any kind. Had the Christian right deplatformed, I'd be a very different person long ago. Yeah, I'm not for the whole deplatforming thing either. In fact, I think that was the start of me, because I used to be a hardcore lefty, and at this point, I just don't even use a term. Like, I don't even like using progressive, while I fit more of those ideals in my political beliefs. They're still, see, everybody has a different version of those terms, because I've seen enough progressives out there that don't believe in the same things I do. Because also progressive sometimes is used with the, I would say, SJW left. And I'm definitely not that. I'm not for deplatforming people. I hate the new rules. Some of you might have seen how YouTube now is like, they're like squashing conspiracy theories by like linking to Wikipedia pages. But I'm like, who is YouTube to determine a conspiracy theory? And the big one is, hey, the JFK one. That was a conspiracy theory that, like, what, 60% of the population believed. So in a democracy, that would be the truth, honestly, if you treat it like that. Was it the truth or not? Who knows? But it's just funny that YouTube can come in and be like, oh, that's a conspiracy theory, despite what the majority believe or not. Like, and they get to be the authority on that because they own the website. They get to, because it's their website, they get to determine what is conspiracy and what is truth. And I'm just kind of like, eh. I just hate when YouTube comes in and is kind of, they're policing the content, but they're not doing it in a fair and honest way. It's kind of like, whatever supports what we believe, we'll go with, even if by our very own logic, we'd be against it. Because there was this whole story I saw recently. They had this Islamic YouTuber who believed in conspiracy theories. She was like a 9/11 truther because she felt the government did it to bash Islam and cause chaos in the Middle East. And so she had those beliefs. And she was a YouTube partner person on like their... not like the YouTube advertising partner, but you know how they promote people during like the Black History Month events. They'll promote certain YouTubers. It was one of those type of partnerships, and completely overlooked. She was saying the same crap Alex Jones was, but because Alex Jones was right wing, boom, he got shut down. But this one, YouTube defended, and that's the type of hypocrisy I hate. And the left doesn't just do that. I've seen the right do that plenty of times too. What is the difference between not allowing everyone to have a voice and deplatforming? They would seem to be the same thing to me. Yeah, I feel like everybody should have a voice. Not allowing everyone to have a voice and deplatforming. Yeah, they're the same thing, because eventually deplatforming is taking away that voice and then not allowing them to have it. Welcome to capitalism. A company can decide what they want to do with their property. Yep. See, and my problem with that is, like, it is YouTube's right to do that. The thing is, I'm kind of more in the boat of it's a utility in a way. Like, I kind of hate saying that, but I feel social media is getting to the point where it's starting to become a utility everybody should have access to for free speech reasons. And I know a lot of right-wing YouTubers or YouTube channels have argued against wanting to police companies in that way. And my problem is when they go to do that, like, think of Prager University. I'm not a fan of Prager. And they would go rallying for free market capitalism all the time from what I could see. But the second it was being used by the company to shut down their channel, they weren't okay with it. And they switched sides. Like, I felt they would have been defending YouTube and their right to shut down whoever they want on their website because it's their business. It's a free service, so they can say, oh, you get the right to post videos and you don't. But Prager switched when YouTube decided, hey, you don't get a voice on our site. And then they decide, hey, free speech, we get that here. And so that was kind of the hypocrisy I've seen on the right too over the issue. But yeah, that was my Discovery rant. Discovery, definitely least favorite Star Trek show. I am rewatching Deep Space Nine, though, along with the Mission Log podcast. I hadn't been keeping up with them for a while, but basically they're a podcast that goes through each episode of Star Trek and basically reviews it. They'll go through, they'll talk about the funny stuff that just because it's a TV show, if it was actual reality, you'd be like, what? And then they look more into it for like what morals are being. See ya, Lore. Thanks for stopping by. They look into it more for the morals of the episode, what it was trying to say, and some of them hold up, some of them don't always. But now that they're hitting Deep Space Nine, which is my favorite Star Trek series, I'm keeping up with them for that. So they're hitting the second episode this week, so I got to watch that. I'm one of the rare people too that I like Deep Space Nine the whole way through. Sure, the first 2 seasons aren't as good as the other ones, but I'm okay with it. I can enjoy them. The only like early seasons of Star Trek I can't enjoy is Voyager. I skip over Voyager's first 2 seasons. And honestly, that's why I gave Discovery a little bit of a shot, because I felt if I had watched Voyager when it was airing, I would have stopped. I would have probably never watched Voyager again just because it was that eh. Anybody else got a new topic? I'm trying to think of a new topic to discuss. Again, I haven't kept up on a lot of the political things this week, so is it bad? My favorite Trek is the original show. No, I don't think it's bad at all. I know a lot of people who I know some people who have only watched the original series and not watched anything else. And that was kind of my point I made when I wrapped up my Discovery review, is I felt like I was basically, me watching the first season of Discovery was me coming to the terms I wasn't going to like every series of Star Trek, because I liked, like, at different levels, I had liked the Star Trek series. Voyager and Enterprise were definitely the weakest ones, but at least I could go back and rewatch them and enjoy them, whereas I'm not going to do that with Discovery. But I know people who've done that. People have stopped at TOS, they have stopped at TNG, and they haven't watched any of the rest. But I wouldn't argue that they're not Trekkies, because they still love Star Trek. I don't think you have to like every one of the shows to say, hey, you're a Trekkie. Wow, everybody's favorite Star Trek is your favorite Star Trek. Aren't you special? Everybody loves Deep Space Nine. See, here's the thing. I think everybody that loves Deep Space Nine turn out to usually be the hardcore Star Trek fans, because I know a lot of Star Trek fans that usually say TNG is their favorite, or TOS, but I usually find the people who have watched all of Star Trek, that usually read the books — I don't read the books, but who play the video games, they get all the collectibles, most of the time they tend to be Deep Space Nine fans, and I find that to be a little interesting. Now, the thing I liked about Deep Space Nine is they took risks with that show. Deep Space Nine took a huge risk making it just a space station, because I know a lot of people hate it, that they're like, oh, Deep Space Nine doesn't go anywhere, it's in the same place, which I thought was funny, because when I watched the first episode of Deep Space Nine again, I was like, wait, the space station moves in the first episode, it went somewhere. So it kind of kills that argument. Plus, they take ships and go places all the time. So it kind of kills that argument. But again, the other argument was Deep Space Nine was a darker show that kind of betrays the Roddenberry message. I never felt it did. What I felt they did was they tested the Roddenberry message and the Star Trek ideals. Because the show was also airing at a time in our society where our ideals were being tested. I just love Shatner. I hate Shatner as a person. I think he's kind of a dick, but I like Kirk the character. My favorite Star Trek is Enterprise. I've got faith of the heart. See, I can't tell if you're trolling or not. So I'll be bluntly honest. Enterprise, I think, was my least favorite when I did the reviews, but I still liked it. But I do like Faith of the Heart. It's a good song. I can sing that. I like it. And people will hate me for it, but I like Faith of the Heart. But it was funny when I was commenting on something about Discovery. One of my friends from my old Star Trek guild was commenting on how Deep Space Nine was like crap the first 2 seasons because the characters had no chemistry, and I was like, what? And Discovery did. But I tend not to argue with him too much, because we've argued so many times over Discovery and over Twitter that I was just like, eh. I ignored it, but when my girlfriend heard about it, she was just like, well, fuck this. Because he argued like Voyager and Enterprise were better earlier on, or something about his argument brought up Enterprise. And my girlfriend got pissed because she hated Enterprise. And she was like, the only good character was the dog, and it was because it was cute. I just thought it was funny. I guess I should have said Kirk too. That's what I meant. Oh yeah. I like Kirk. The original cast is pretty good. The other argument I make is when people say Star Trek is always known for having crappy first seasons and it gets better, so that's why we should excuse crappy first seasons. I always point to the original series. The original series is like the complete opposite of what all the other Star Trek series did. It basically started out at its best and got worse over time when you look at it. Because like season 1 is the best of the original series. Season 2 is good. I don't think it's as great as season 1, but it's good. And then you get to season 3, it's terrible. I don't even watch season 3. So I basically went through all the Star Trek series with my girlfriend and showed them to her, and that was kind of our we had all the series. She hated Voyager with a passion. And we watched the original series, but I didn't even bother to show her season 3 because I didn't even want to watch that stuff. We also skipped seasons 1 and 2 of Voyager because it was crap. All Trekkies hate Enterprise. That's why I love it so much. I don't think all Trekkies hate it because the guy I was debating with liked Enterprise a lot more than Deep Space Nine. And I would say he is a Trekkie. But Enterprise is a decent concept for a show. If you're going to make a prequel for a show, the plot you would do is what Enterprise was doing, was basically humanity's first steps into space and becoming the United Federation of Planets. That is a story worth telling a prequel to for basically the original series. But they had done that already, so Discovery doing another prequel, it just... I don't think the Cleon War is an arc that's worth telling a prequel for. Maybe a movie or a miniseries, but not this full-length show. And that's why you can kind of see they ditch that plot line towards the end of Discovery really quick. They're like, okay, we need to dump this plot. It's not working. I gotta do my Star Trek movies. Rank my Star Trek movies. I can tell you my least favorite one, though, is Star Trek The Final Frontier. That one was the worst Star Trek movie out there. And that's why I've defended... I was at the... I think it was the Star Trek convention. It was... Which one was it? I went to 2 Star Trek conventions. I see me some Pitmonk. Yes, I do. Isn't there a Star Trek mobile game? And if so, have you played it? There are tons of Star Trek mobile games. I had it on my phone for a bit. Do I still have it on here? Let's take a look. This is some live streaming advice for you guys. Totally use your phone while on a live stream. At least as it applies. I do not have it on here, but there was Trexels, I want to say it was called. That was one of them. I will answer your question here in a second, Brian Finley, on Babylon 5. Let me tell my convention story here real quick, though. So I was at one of the Star Trek conventions. It was either TNG's 25th anniversary or DS9's 20th anniversary. It was one of those conventions because I went 2 years in a row. But at one of those, one of the panels I liked going to the Star Trek, while I was at the Star Trek convention, was they have, if you haven't been to one of these things, they have the big auditorium, which is for like the celebrities, the people that a lot of the people go there to see. But then they have a secondary room, and that's where they usually put a second event going on at the same time. That's somebody who's less high profile. So it might be a guest star that wasn't on Star Trek as much, or one of the writers or something, or somebody in the community that's pretty popular. And so they were bringing somebody on in that room at least once a day at the convention who was a writer on the Star Trek website. And they were doing top 10 list where you could go in the audience and if you went into the audience there, you could participate in ranking on the top 10 list. For example, we ranked the best guest stars. We ranked who was the best like character for this position. Like we made our fantasy Star Trek crew, so we picked our favorite captain, our favorite first officer, and so on. Whoever we felt the best was. I won. I actually went up to the microphone and pitched the security officer, and I said it was Odo, because who's gonna beat a shape-shifting security officer? Come on, Worf? No, sorry. Odo just wins that position. He's the best qualified for your fantasy ship there, so nobody argued with me on that one. But so we ranked the Star Trek movies, and this was the year I think Into Darkness had just come out. And of course, a lot of Trekkies hated Into Darkness. And I did not like it either. It had potential. I was entertained in the first half of the movie. And then you get to the second half and I was just like, And I left the theater not sure if I liked it or not. As an action movie, I felt it was fine. But as a Star Trek thing, I was conflicted. But at the Star Trek convention, that was voted the worst Star Trek movie by far. People hated it. And I know a lot of people online, when they saw that, were just writing it off like, oh, it was all the hardcore Trekkies just hating on the new JJ reboot because it doesn't fit with their Trek. And see, I was trying to argue that, yeah, we hate Beyond, but can we really excuse the two movies I felt are worse than, not Beyond, Into Darkness. The two movies that are worse than Into Darkness by far is Star Trek Insurrection, I felt, and Star Trek The Final Frontier. And so Insurrection was funny when I had watched the Mission Log review for that, and they actually really liked it, and which is fine. I mean, people can like that movie. And in fact, I think they liked it mainly because it felt more like a Trek movie than an action movie. My only problem was it was a Trek story we had already seen in TNG, and it still was trying to be an action movie. The plot was just all over the place. The action was kind of boring. The bad guys just weren't that interesting. It was just a movie. But it was still better than The Final Frontier, which when you look at it, the plot is terrible. And I don't mean to trash Final Frontier because I'm an atheist and I don't want a movie where they go out and find God. But the problem with it is they weren't willing to actually find God. Like, they actually told William Shatner when they were writing it, you can't actually find God. We're not gonna let you do that. So they made it an alien that was posing as God, I guess, but they'd never really address it. So the whole point of their movie they never really commit to. And the bad guy's lame. Again, that movie had the whole Spock has this half brother you've never heard of, and I hated that. So why am I gonna like it when Discovery does that now, saying there's a half or an adoptive sister you've never heard of? I'm like, I saw this in Final Frontier and that worked out really well. So there's that. And then Final Frontier, if you watch it, the Final Frontier just has the worst special effects. Like, if you compare that one to the previous one, A Voyage Home, you can see the drastic drop in quality for their special effects. Okay, so let me get back to some of the questions I missed. What are your thoughts on Babylon 5? I like Babylon 5 quite a bit. I had avoided it for a little bit just because it was an older show and the special effects are really crappy early on. And sometimes that can distract me from a show. Plus, I heard it was very similar to Deep Space Nine, which I can definitely see the comparisons. But I ended up liking Babylon 5 quite a bit. I actually want to go back and rewatch that. It's a really good show. I haven't liked anything Babylon 5 has done post the show ending, like the movies or all that, because I felt like Babylon 5 told the story it needed to, and they didn't need to continue anymore. So really good show there. Honestly, I felt Babylon 5 was less comparable to Deep Space Nine than it was to Star Trek Online. Star Trek Online basically takes Babylon 5's story and repeats it. So Babylon 5 has the Shadows, I think they were called. That was like the big ancient bad that was coming back to take over the galaxy. And Star Trek Online basically tells that plot line with the Iconians. And it says, hey, the Iconians, they actually never completely died off and they're going to come back. And I like that plot line in Star Trek Online, but it is clearly the Babylon 5 plot line. Murphy, do you play fantasy music during your D&D campaigns? Yes, I do, Pagan. In fact, I'll show you what I use various tools for my D&D campaigns. So, I have YouTube up already. So, and it's funny because when Evan does his live streams, he plays what I usually play for background music. So usually I just, on YouTube, just search fantasy music. And I get, yeah, you can see here, these are in the middle of play because I've used these for my D&D campaigns. So I tend to use them. I don't know how loud this is going to be. So let's, it might go over my voice. Who knows? I'll speak louder in case, but I use this. And so I'll use these different playlists depending on the theme of my campaign. So I've done a pirate themed campaign. I am currently running a samurai themed campaign, and I just finished up this dragon one. So, which was just my typical fantasy themed. And now I'm moving on to the giant one. So I usually find playlists that fit that. Can't hear anything from the videos. I thought I had that set up to play things from the videos. I guess I don't. Hey, I better figure that out for when we live stream, though. But yeah, so the other thing I do is I like to have a theme song for each of the campaigns. So I go around and find a song, like a short little fantasy theme. Typically one that hasn't been used widely out there. I don't like to steal from a game or a movie. Even if I like the theme, like, wow, that would make a great theme for a D&D campaign. I want the song to not be associated with the movie. I want it to be associated with that story that I'm telling. So I usually find a quick song out there that most likely my players haven't heard. So I have a theme going on for the samurai campaign. I had one for the pirate one. And I have one. I had one for the dragon campaign, which I think I might just keep for the giant one because I haven't found one for the giant campaign yet. But if I find one, I'm going to use it. So what I usually do when I start one of my sessions off, and there's debate over whether you should do this or not as a DM, but I like to, at the start of each of my sessions, is I'll play the theme song, and then I have a point where I always come in during the theme song, and I basically do a bit of a session recap or a story recap where I hit the major things the players should remember from the previous ones. I've heard a few debates where other DMs are like, you should make it that your players kind of remember what they think was important. You shouldn't have to tell them that because it kind of influences them in the story. At least that was kind of the rough argument I heard. But the problem is, I feel like you have to kind of give them some refresher for a story, especially depending on how frequently you meet. I even felt like for when I was doing weekly sessions at college, I felt like I should do a story recap because the players aren't living that story day to day like the characters would be. So that's why I'm also usually at liberty to remind characters about certain things that I felt their characters would remember as they go throughout the story. And then there's this other thing, before I move on to other questions I've seen it popped up, that I use. I use tabletop sounds every once in a while. It's this nice little ambient music track or soundtrack that you can go through. So when I did my mini adventure into the Cthulhu mythos, I was able to go through here and pull out 1920 sounds. I was pulling out these creepy caves that deep ones were hanging out in. And so I really like this site when you just have to do noise and sound. It doesn't get to always include music, but I used to use this quite a bit. Eventually, it just got old, so that's why I started switching to just music playlists. So this is another one I recommend. I have on my iPad, which isn't here, I have a app that lets you do basically this, but it lets you mix more sounds and have more stuff going on. Actually, I think it was on this phone, and I mean to put it on my iPad because it's way easier to use an iPad when you're playing D&D for your stuff than it is a phone. Where is it? Do I even have it on here still? I hope I do. Yeah, it's an app called RPG Fantasy, and turn your device off silent. Yeah, okay. But yeah, you can go through. I don't know how well you guys will see this, but yeah, you get to control the sounds. There's a bunch of different atmosphere noises you can make. There's playlists for sound effects. And this is just one of them. I have another one that I think I like a lot more than this one did. But yeah, I find sounds are really important for games. Even when I just played normal board games, I usually like to have some sort of instrumental soundtrack that usually fits the atmosphere of the game. I just feel that adds to it. And then the last part for Pagan's question I'll mention is I'm pretty excited. I actually am using one of those. I don't have to find it, but I'm using one of. So when my players go up against Strahd in my vampire campaign, I don't have a theme song for that campaign because the thing I was using for the theme song, I ended up deciding, wow, this is a lot better as the final music for the showdown against Strahd in his castle. So I'm going to use that when they finally have to go up against Strahd because it's like this kind of dark organ music, which is usually associated with, the whole vampire genre. So, and they actually will meet Strahd when he's at an organ when they enter the castle. So I just felt that's appropriate. Once the final showdown begins, I'm hitting that playlist, and it's like a 2-hour playlist, so I should be set for when they have to try to survive his castle and kill him. Let me see. I'm pretty sure tablets were invented to run tabletop games. I know. I was bugging so long to get a tablet. Like that was something I wanted, but I couldn't justify buying it because I wanted to spend my money elsewhere. So that was always on my gift list for people. If they're like, hey, if you want to get me a tablet, sure. I ended up just getting my mom's old one because she got a new one, and so I use that. But you know what? I haven't actually used it for D&D sessions yet because I still got to set it up. And I want to set up a better music playlist that's more easy to access. So there's that. Okay, I gotta move on to some other questions. Yes, I got here. Pitmonk is love. Pitmonk is life. I miss Pitmonk. I didn't get a chance to watch any of his live streams last week just because I was busy. Because I realized I was like, wow. Usually I watch at least one of his streams during the week. But I'm hoping his dad's doing better. I think he got the surgery, so I'm hoping he's okay. Sega or Nintendo? I'm going to have to go Nintendo, but I don't really play either of them that much. The closest I get to Nintendo is I have the Wii, and I played that for a little bit, but now it's just really sitting there throughout the day, and maybe once or twice a year, if I have a group of people over and we're not playing a board game, we might be on the Wii playing like Mario Party or something. Mario Party is awesome. I love that game. But again, Mario Party is just like a board game, so it's just got some mini games in it. How do you feel about Batman? Batman is probably my favorite DC hero. In fact, I have a tough relationship with superhero movies. I've never been a huge fan of just the superhero genre, but I do like. I used to love the Marvel movies, but now I'm kind of in the burnout phase because there's been so many superhero movies that I'm just kind of like, eh. So, and DC, their movies just no. They have been terrible. So I'm just kind of like, eh. But the Nolan Batman trilogy, that I love. That's what kind of like that was the first superhero movie I watched, and I was like, huh, I actually kind of like this. Have you watched Farscape? Yes, I have. I think Farscape is my least favorite sci-fi show that I've watched out there. Not to say it's bad, because if I want to go bad, I mean, I'll pull out like Star Trek Discovery, or there's a Stargate Universe. Stargate Universe is one of those sci-fi shows that I don't enjoy and I won't go back and rewatch. Farscape's one I don't think I'll rewatch, but I did enjoy watching it. But compared to all the other sci-fi shows I've watched out there, it's at the bottom of my list. I'm pretty sure tablets. Yeah, I read that one already. Zakara says, "Yay, heart." I don't know what the yay's for, but I hope I did something right. I gotta get my approval in. But yeah, I'm kind of. So I was looking at. If you guys haven't seen the Infinity's War, I think the trailer came out. I haven't seen Infinity Wars poster. So again, I got my major in graphic design, and I don't know. When I look at this poster, I probably view it more differently than other people, but I just think this poster's a mess. I don't like it. I saw this immediately. I was like, what? I get that this is supposed to be a big, like, coming together of all the Marvel movies and their characters. But, I mean, was it really necessary to throw every character ever onto the poster and then label their names? I guess it makes it feel like a big event, but to me, it just kind of makes it look a little bit like a mess. Like, I'm like, what's going on? I just see a clutter of people, like, on the poster. And here's my problem I'm going to have with Avengers Infinity War. And I think a lot of people are going to have this problem too. I think it's too hyped. I really do. Even if you're a fan of, like, I was talking to my girlfriend who loves these movies, but even she tended to agree with me. She thinks there's a little bit too much hype behind this movie because they've been building it up for 10 years. I think no matter what this movie does, I don't think it will live up to a lot of people's expectations because they've had 10 years to think about, ooh, how's this movie going to play out? Who's going to be in it? What's going to happen? And they've had 10 years to build up the narrative in their head. That I think by the time this movie comes out, whatever it does, I don't think it will live up to what people wanted. And the second this comes out, I don't know how... Like, I feel like that might be actually the decline of the Marvel movies because that's what people have kind of been coming back to the Marvel Cinematic Universe for, because it's been building up to this moment. So the second they get to this, I think they might still be successful, but I think it will kind of go downhill after that. But, and I don't mean to poo-poo on Infinity War, because I'll probably see it. I've been skipping a lot of the Marvel movies recently, but most likely if I'm going to get dragged to any of them, this is the one I'll probably go see, just because it has been built up for a while. Oh, I didn't even realize that was a photoshopped one for a second. Yay for Batman! Yeah, I like Batman. I don't like Superman. Superman's retarded. The only other, like, I don't read comics, so I'm not into the whole comic universe. But I did play, what was that, DC Universe Online, the MMO. I actually really liked that game. And I ended up making a villain of mine for some of my Star Trek stories. In that, he was a bad guy in the DC Universe, at least in the online game. He had the super speed, and he was a techie, and I was like, I'm going to use this guy in some of my Star Trek stories. And I did, and I really like him. But it was a fun game, DC Universe Online. It just was very grindy, and when you didn't have a group of friends to play with, the game was so much less fun. And that's the problem I have with MMOs. I don't like the MMO genre because it's too grindy. There's not enough story. You're doing the same thing over and over and over again. It just gets repetitive and boring. And that's kind of how they have to be built to keep you coming back. I haven't really played World of Warcraft because of that. I would have probably played it a lot when it came out, but because I was young and I couldn't get a job because, child labor laws and stuff, I couldn't play the game. See you, Zakarvis. Have a nice day. Yeah, so I didn't really play WoW back in its high days, and when I tried to get into it now, at least in their free-to-play modes, I'm just kind of like, eh. The only MMO I really delved into was Star Trek Online, and I have a hard time going back to that. One, because I played the hell out of that game, and just after you've played a game so much, you get bored of it. And then two, I just don't like a lot of the changes they did to Star Trek Online. Some of them are good, but a lot of them I disagreed with, and that kind of took some of the fun out of the game, so I don't really play that one anymore. I'll hop in every once in a while. I used to just hop in when they continue the story, but even now I'm just not interested in the story Star Trek Online is telling. So I'm just kind of like, eh. So I don't touch that one. Also, I used to podcast for Star Trek Online, so it basically kind of became a job to follow it. And it definitely takes some of the fun out of the game when you have to make it a full-time job. So when you don't enjoy the game, you can't take a break from it because you're still having to play it for your job. Let me see. Drunken Peasants Underground. Yeah, I agree. It will never live up to what people want, especially people who were young when Avengers came out and have a fantasized view of the movie. DC Universe Online was ahead of its time in terms of MMOs. Yeah, I don't even remember what it did. The only ones I've played is Star Trek Online and a little bit of WoW, and then a little bit of DC Universe. Oh, and I've played Neverwinter. That was another. So Cryptic Studios made Star Trek Online, and they also made the Neverwinter game. I liked what they did with that. My only problem with it was I didn't have as much time to play it as people in my guild did. So they eventually got to a higher level than me. And then when they came to help me out at the lower levels, they just steamrolled through all the NPCs. And the thing I liked in Star Trek Online when you played that was there was like a handicap process. So if you could either scale your character up to their levels or they could scale down to yours. But Neverwinter, for whatever reason, didn't have that. So it was just then really boring to go play that game with friends because they just would come in and kill everything. So I just felt like I was just there going, all right, they'll kill everything, and I'll just be in the background throwing my magic missiles. Yeah, that's what I thought, Pagan. Pagan says, wow, the Avengers was 6 years ago. Time to sit on an iceberg and float myself out to sea. Because if you think about it, I think the first Iron Man movie was a decade ago, so that's why I say they've been building this up for like 10 years. Because we even knew, like, once they started having all the movies come out, and then they were kind of plugging, hey, Avengers is going to be a thing. It's been so long. It might not feel as long, but it's been a long time. And so you got to think about it. People have been building this up in their head for that long. But honestly, I'm just not a big moviegoer at this point. I'm more into the TV shows. And honestly, at this point, even when I start to hate TV shows, that's why I do D&D. Because at least if I hate the story and where the direction it's going, I as a player or the dungeon master can have some influence over that. I've been trying to think of what other than fantasy like realm I want to do for a role play game. I've been thinking of different sci-fi ones. I know there's a Star Trek one out there. I've also considered Mass Effect because I just like the aliens in that a little more. I've written a lot of my own alien races for my own writing, so I was like, maybe I'll just turn that into a role play game at some point if I want to do sci-fi. So that's one I've been considering. I've also somebody pitched it at college, and I almost got to play in it, but then they said it on a day I couldn't do it. But they were going to do an Avatar: The Last Airbender campaign, and I was like, that would be so much fun. I want to be a waterbender and do some water-bendy things. My buddy was trying to get me into a role play in the Innistrad plane of the Magic the Gathering multiverse. I really wasn't into it. Yeah, I think they were doing a mix of that. I'm not into Magic the Gathering. My roommate at the time when I was at college tried to get me into it because he really loved it, but it just wasn't my thing. And so I used to do a YouTube channel. I'll even bring it up. If you guys get bored and you like board games, I'm going to give you a lot more content you can watch here. And so we used to do a show called Dominating Dominion. I've mentioned it a few times on the live streams. I still have a portion who come over that were huge fans of our series here, and they still want us to continue it. And we've talked about it. It's just finding the time to do it. But we used to do this series. You're not going to hear any sound, so whatever. But we used to do this series. I'm turning the sound down because I hear it and it's loud. But so Dominion's this card game that it fits the Magic the Gathering genre to me. The only difference is everybody gets like the same hand to start, and it's just as you play the game, you will build up different hands with the players, and it's kind of up to you. So it's basically it's player skill at that point, and it's not like pay to win, which I feel Magic the Gathering gets into a lot. And so that's why I don't play Magic the Gathering. Oh, this is an episode me and Ben did not do. These were my friends Scott and Ryan. We did this episode. But yeah, let me go to yeah, so you buy 10 different cards as you play. And this is what fit Magic the Gathering. So I know Magic the Gathering has this whole like lore out there, but I just wasn't interested in it just because I didn't care for the game that much. I know I definitely want to do a video though when I start talking about D&D more. Now that I have one of my campaigns wrapped up that I can talk about. I want to talk about advice for DMs because one of the problems I've encountered as a player is keeping an interest in a game. And I don't mean like you get like bored during the session necessarily, but like what I as a player look for when I go to a session, because I have not had successful sessions as a player when I've joined things like at my college campus or like things in the local area. I did one back in like middle school. I joined a group that was meeting at the gaming store here, and it just didn't go well because I wasn't getting out of it what I wanted as a player. Same thing at college. It just wasn't my cup of tea. Plus also if you become a game master, let me tell you, you need to keep your schedule when you're the game master, because my game master was canceling sessions all the time, and he wasn't alerting people ahead of time. And I lived off campus without a car, so I'd walk to campus for his sessions it was Wednesday nights, and I'd get there a lot of the time and find out he wasn't going to DM that night, or he just wasn't there to DM. And so I was like, oh. And so after like 4 times of that happening, I just lost interest and then didn't want to play anymore. And so and this is the point I also make it for podcasting too. If you say you're going to do a podcast every week, like on the same day, you do it the same day, because the second you stop doing it, and your audience is going to lose interest. And that's how I felt when I was dungeon mastering. Is you got to have it. If you're saying, hey, we're going to meet on Wednesdays, and you expect your players to meet you on Wednesdays, you got to be there on the Wednesdays. If you start missing, your players are going to kind of go, eh. My players run the game. I just facilitate them choosing their adventure. I try not to force anything, just provide a world and NPCs. I never said no or you can't do that. Yeah, I tend not. So the type of DMing the stories I've told is I don't do as much open world. I do a lot more narrative. So my thing with D&D is my primary focus is telling a good story. So the gameplay and the rules kind of come second to that. It's just, hey, are we having a fun time sitting around and telling a story together? And so that's my focus. Now, because of that, I like to tell big epic stories, kind of similar to like a TV show. So usually I do have an overall plot that the characters follow. And luckily for me, like some people call that railroading. I don't really call it that because the players can choose whether they go on that or not and what they want to do as they go through it. And my players at least are interested in something like that. The closest I would say I've gotten to something where like Pagan describes, where it's kind of an open world and you just facilitate, is my pirate campaign. Basically what I did in that is I had my cast of characters that were on their ship other than the player characters. Cause of course I had a party of 4. So it takes more than 4 to run a ship. So I had a captain, a cook, a first officer, all of that. I had all that on their ship and I had their personalities written down. And then I had where they were. They were in the Kraken Sea, and I had the islands that were there and what was on them. And it was basically up to the players where they were going to go. But I did have written into my pirate campaign an overall story that they would uncover, just so I had an idea going forward. I had a few side quests ready to go, but for the most part, it was up to them what they wanted to do. And I kind of know my players well enough to know what stories they'll go after. So in the pirate campaign, the big story was there was this artifact called the Moonstone, and it was from the Moon Elf Society, which was like an ancient race of elves. They were like the first race of elves in my world. And so they had this artifact, and people have tried to find it forever, but their captain, who they overthrew, was trying to find this thing. And of course they want money. So they wanted to get this Moonstone, but also I tied it into the captain of their pirate ship had this medallion that could wipe somebody's memory. And so what he would do is the crewmen of his ship that he knew wouldn't join him willingly, he'd wipe their memory so they wouldn't remember anything of their past lives. And so some of the characters in my party had their memories wiped. And so they wanted to get their memories back. And the person they found who could do that wanted the Moonstone. So they ended up going on that quest because they wanted their memories back. So as long as you do stuff like that as a DM, like you tie in character interest to it, you usually can tell the stories you want to tell as the DM. Now, you got to be careful, though, because if they really don't want to go on that story, don't force them on that story because they're going to catch on to it really quick. If you say you're going to do a debate on Sunday, then you do it on Sunday. Cough, cough, James. See, but James got lost in the woods. But yeah, the thing I want to do on the next, so for my giant campaign, this one's going to be a little more open world. So basically, the thing I like about this is it does tell like an overall story. Like there's a plot, of course, that deals with giants. If you didn't get that from the cover, but with this one. There's a whole chapter, like it's divided into chapters. It has like a little chart. I'll show this because even if my players see it, I don't really care because I won't tell them anything anyway. And plus I might change some of it, but yeah. So this one, I like how it sets it up. This is like the overall story flow chart for the main part of the story. So you'd start up here and then you go through. There might be some branches as you go. But the thing I like is here at the middle, like chapter 3, it labels here. If you actually go to chapter 3 here, it is literally a map of the world just telling you where things are and encounters can happen. And for a whole part of this story, it's open world adventure until the players meet someone or find something to continue the main part of the story. So I like that because for me, that I've transferred this to my world. So I'm basically making it an open world for my players. They'll go around, they might encounter some things that deal with the plot, but they also might just come across something else that I throw in there that they might take interest in, whether it's like finding a treasure or taking on some different bad guy. My players are too strong-willed. I try to give them a few quests and they just make up their own. Hey, that can be fine. It's all about you. See, it's hard to give advice for everybody in Dungeons and Dragons because everybody does different games. If they want to go rescue baby eagles and carry them around and raise them, who am I to stop them? Yeah, that's true. That's the thing you also got to accept as a DM. You're just, and I find this key for not only myself, but for my players. There's kind of has to be an understanding that the DM isn't your antagonist. They're just what happens to you for your actions. So the DM isn't necessarily going up against their players. They're just trying to provide a really good experience, a realistic experience. And to do that, they have to provide challenges to you, and they basically want to provide outcomes to what you want to do. My DM hosts our D&D campaign in his own universe. It's actually really fleshed out since he's been working on it with his brother since they were kids. Yeah, that's basically, I'll bring up what I've been working on. So I use a website called Incarnate, and I use this to make all my maps. I think it's still in beta, but it's still works pretty well. Let's see if I remember my password. Yeah, here we go. So I use this to make my world, and so this is my universe, my world that I host my campaigns in, and it's based off of what we ran in middle school. The only thing I had developed in middle school at the time was this kingdom, Goodwin, and back then though we called it. This was the Good Lands, and over here Arbram, that was the Bad Lands. That's where the bad guys came from. That was our middle school D&D campaign. I have since fleshed that out to be this world now, and so. My giant campaign, I've transferred everything from the Forgotten Realms universe that's in the book to now my universe that will basically be in this region here, Callahan and Goodwin, just because that's where my players have been. So they're a little more familiar with that. Plus, it makes sense for where we've left off in the story that the giant campaign really fits well. But yeah, so I have this whole world. They've been around most of it, and there's a bunch of different stuff going on. But otherwise, there's places here I haven't even developed that much. And at some points, I just go to my players when they're interested in creating a character. I go, oh, okay, that kind of fits in with an idea I had here in this world. Go ahead and flesh it out and do what you want with it. And so, but yeah, this is the world I came up with. I have a bunch of different maps set up. Go back. Do you not go back fully now? Oh, crap. Here we go. Let me pull up a map. Let's see. I want to bring up the map I'm using for the giant No, okay, I'm not using this for the giant campaign, but this includes where they'll be. It just doesn't have the stuff I need to know for the giant campaign. But yeah, this is like an example of the map I did. And so this kind of also helps me keep track because yeah, each hexagon I have on here is like a 25-mile radius. So I know, like, usually how long it will take somebody to get somewhere on the map, if that ever matters. But yeah, I like making maps for the world. So that's kind of what I'm working on, at least in the D&D universe. But yeah, it's really immersive. We actually, when we wrapped up our dragon campaign, we wrapped up some of our plot lines for even our original characters we had from our first campaign ever. And that was kind of the goal. I was like, this is an epic story that really fits with what our original characters did, and then our characters we did when we came back to this world. And so I pretty much told everybody this is the campaign where we're going to wrap everything up. So now when we start this giant campaign, it's completely new ideas for characters. I'm sure we'll have maybe some tie-ins to what we did before, but no like direct character tie-ins where it's like, hey, they're helping out with the plot or whatnot. So the characters I'm actually really excited for in this next campaign. My girlfriend, she always is playing rogues for the most part because she likes that class, and she likes tiefling, so she's going a tiefling rogue, but it's basically Loki because that's her favorite character ever. So she's basically playing a Loki character in the next campaign. My brother is playing a gunslinger because in our last campaign, my first campaign was like the classic medieval thing. And then when we came back to the world, I'm like, well, it's got to evolve in some ways. So I made it in the Renaissance, and that's when they got muskets. So now we're gonna actually have a character that uses muskets and all that in our game, and I like it because he didn't know whether he wanted to play a dwarf or a gnome, because both of them kind of have ties to musketry in our world. So he's gonna play a dwarf, but he has a gnome sidekick that follows him around, who's actually inventing all the guns for him. So that's gonna be fun. And then my other friend, I think he's playing a samurai. He wants to play a samurai, which will fit because actually in my world here, Callahan, it's basically the East Asian culture up here. So I have a lot of monks and samurai up there. But I'm actually really excited to run this giant campaign. I want to try to wrap up one of my other campaigns before I start it. So I'm getting a little hungry, guys. So I'll let you guys ask. Any last minute questions. I'll be here for about a couple more minutes, and then I'm gonna go get some food. I'll probably clean my basement, get some of my D&D stuff organized while we talk about it, and then I want to upload. You guys will get, as I mentioned before. Some of you weren't here, so I'll mention it again. I have another video. It's already edited. I just got posted to YouTube of our nothing personal gameplay. So I think I'll post that to here. I might post that to Dominating Dominion as well. I haven't decided how much board game stuff I want to do over here, but I'm kind of the opinion now. I'll just post it here for now, and if people really hate it, I'll just move it over there. Let me see if tomorrow works. I'll let you know by tonight if I can. Yeah, let me know by tonight. I'll be around. If you can let me know, like, around when DP goes live or after-ish, let me know, and that way I can have everything set up. And then let me know what you want to do, Pagan. If you want to try to do it on one, if you want to do a video call during it, because I have it set up. Actually, I had to set it back over to what you see now with the Admiral Murphy channel graphics and all that. But I have it set up where I have our game on a screen like this, and then me and you on video. So we could do that if you want. Otherwise, because I see advantages to both, because it'd be fun to talk to you while we do it. But otherwise, if you want to do it on your stream, and I'll do it on mine, we can do that. And then we can trash talk each other, and it would allow us to talk more about the cards and what's going on. We've got an interesting show. Yeah, I saw it. See, I forgot about it until this morning, and I saw it because I know JF's coming on. And I used to really like JF. JF was one of my favorite guests on the show. And then, like, I remember early on when the DP audience was starting to not like him, I didn't follow him as much. So I didn't know exactly what was going on. I was like, wow, why did guys start hating JF? He was just this cool... he was just this cool guy that came on to talk about science. But then then I learned he was basically a white nationalist ethno-state dude, which... I mean, you can believe what you want. I disagree, but... you definitely lose some respect for people when they kind of do that. Especially because some of his beliefs come across as a little hypocritical. So, and I know, like, that definitely changed a lot of people in the DP audience about JF. So I hope when they bring JF on tonight, they actually will talk about some of this controversial stuff and not shy away from it. Not to the point where they make JF uncomfortable, but just enough, because if they don't talk about it, I think it's a missed opportunity, and the DP audience will not like that. So hopefully they talk about it. See, that's the thing. JF always seems like a pretty cool guy, even if I disagree with him politically, of course. I don't really watch his videos, and I guess the thing is I'm biased too, because I think it's my hatred for Andy Worski that made me not like JF as much when he was starting to hang around that crowd a lot. So I was like, oh, why? Hello, Low Energy Videos. You got here just as I'm getting ready to leave. So if you got a question or whatnot, I'm here for a couple more minutes, then I'm heading out because I'm getting hungry too. Yeah, let's try to get both of us talking to each other. I agree. Okay, we'll do that, Pagan. I'll mess around and figure out what's up with the stream audio and why that's not being captured. Because while the game audio is not as important, the nice thing is it has a little bit of game audio while you play. So that will be fun. Oh, by the way, Pagan probably saw, and a few of you saw, I did a practice game as the U.S. against Russia, against my brother. Sadly lost. I was trying to go for control of Europe in that game, and it did not go well. My brother had enough points that by the late war, he won. Because there's a card you can play in it where you give your opponent a certain amount of points, and if you're still winning at that point, you win. And he did that, and I lost. Do you wipe standing up or sitting down? I wipe sitting down. Why would I stand up? That's effort. That's good. I remember when they had Maddox on, or yeah, it was Maddox, right? And they just avoided all the awkward questions. That rubbed people the wrong way. And like I didn't care for Maddox at all. He was definitely a boring guest. The part I hated about that, and I think this got into the documentary a little bit, was because also a lot of people felt the same way. Was it kind of the way they handled the Maddox episode kind of betrayed what DP was always about, at least to a lot of people. Like DP was never afraid of having controversial people on and asking them questions. Like they did that with the Milo episode and all that. But when they brought on Maddox and it was revealed they were censoring the chat, that was messed up. And that rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, especially for a podcast that's always arguing against censorship. That was a terrible move on their part. So especially when you're censoring a chat or a Streamlabs and people are paying to get their messages up there, and yet you didn't tell them you have increased the censorship. Yeah. See, that's when I'm okay, though, Maddox not coming on. He just wasn't that interesting. So I was like, whatever. And I'll give him slack. If they wanted to have him on and censor the chat, that's their call at the end. But I do feel like they should have told the people, hey, or even ahead of time, if they just mentioned on social media, hey, the Streamlabs are going to be a little more censored because we do want our guests to feel comfortable coming on, and we're worried about that. So they either tell the audience there's more censorship on, or they just don't do Streamlabs. And I think after the fact, they realized they shouldn't have done the Streamlabs because it looked really bad when that whole thing went down. There are topics the peasants wouldn't like to be brought up. Isn't that the same thing? Like Maddox doesn't want to talk about his old podcast with hosts. Isn't that the same thing as the peasants? Are you referring, Pagan, to like them not wanting to talk about the DP drama? Because I get that too. Also, I think there's legal reasons why they can't talk about that, if that's what you're mentioning. And again, like I agree that in the end, it's their call to not talk about it. I'm just saying, I think a lot of the audience wanted them to talk about it. So of course, you're going to rub your audience the wrong way, not talking about it. But also, it was really just the whole censorship thing. They just needed to not have done that because it would have rubbed people the wrong way. Yeah. See, and I get that. I know. So you got to think of it as both. It's the hard thing I think a lot of the audience has is you got to think of it both as a show and, hey, these are people. Because that's what it happened with the whole I guess I call it the thought situation from the last 24-hour show. Like, I will say, I did not like them on the show. I thought they were boring and eventually got annoying. But I didn't hate them enough to be like ranting all over the place like some of the audience was, because you know what, they're people too. They're not they weren't the best guests ever, but they didn't need to get as much hate as they got. But I'm also, see, I'm in a neutral perspective because I don't agree with DP's defending of them as much as they have been, to the point where they kind of trashed the audience a bit for not liking them. I think from a show perspective, you have to know your audience is of a certain demographic and they will like a certain thing. So you kind of have to appease that because it's a show that you're making for them. And so there's that whole aspect you have to take into it too. But I won't defend the audience's hatred of those two or those type of guests when it gets like to the ridiculous level it sometimes gets to. There's my complex opinion on that issue. Hello, Batman Gfys. I'm just gonna say G. Am I supposed to say GFYS, or is it actual like I have to throw them together and try to pronounce it? I never actually know. I've been pushing for a lot of fan-friendly changes to the show. Yeah, that's the thing. You gotta fan-friend, like, it's a show, it's a business. So in a way, like, I even have this as a YouTuber myself. Like, you're doing your own thing out there, and you hate it when other people come in to tell you something. But at a certain point, especially when you become a bigger YouTube channel, you gotta appease your fan base in some way. That way you keep them around. And Drunken Peasants always kind of has had that problem. Sometimes rightly so. Like, they should call out their audience sometimes for being stupid, but if you do it so many times, it's going to start rubbing them the wrong way, especially for things that are actually issues. Like, you've seen it. Most of you here probably watched the DP documentary. You saw it with the kayfabe era. You saw it with the Billy the Fridge stuff. There's been a lot, like the whole, what I call the DP scare era. There was a lot of things that the audience was bringing up as problems with the show. And Drunken Peasants kind of had a mixed reaction to it. And I think that did lead to a bit of the viewer decline. And that's not me saying everything the audience complained about was right. Like, I know there was a good portion of the audience that hated the rotating panel of hosts. And I was okay with it. And I think that was only because it was so clear that TJ and the rest of them just weren't interested in doing the show. And the show gets a lot less more interesting when they're on the show not wanting to do it. So at that point, I was okay with the change of hosts because they were clearly more interested in doing the show at the time. I'm with Pimp's take on the thoughts. They did not deserve as much hate, and I don't get why they did, other than new things scare me. See, I'm not the type that new things on the show scare me. I like it. Like, I honestly love when they bring guests onto the show because it's cool having new perspectives on. Not every guest works out, but you kind of accept it and move on. Now, my problem is with those two, I just don't think they were... It kind of comes down to the whole Scotty rage against Joe. The whole rage against Joe was he wasn't a fit for Drunken Peasants. He didn't follow the formula, which is fine, but eventually it starts to take away from why a good portion of your audience is there. There is a portion of the audience that goes there just to watch crazy people and news and all that. They're not there for things to mix up all the time. And the key is finding the balance that appeases both of those sides. I am very confident in the fact that the thoughts wouldn't have been disliked if they weren't on all at once. I agree too. That was my thing. I think the reason they got so much hate was because they had like 12 people on talking over each other. Because I didn't think they were that bad until there were way more people on the stream. They weren't the type of YouTubers I'd go out and watch. So I think that's also where, like, when you're watching a show like Drunken Peasants, I think there's a good portion of the audience that want guests on that they watch or can relate to. So, like, for example, they had Mundane Matt on. I think there's a lot of crossover between Mundane Matt's audience and Drunken Peasants. So it's fun seeing those two come together to do the show. But where it comes into the thoughts and Drunken Peasants, there was literally no audience crossover because I don't think a lot of the audience was interested in what the one girl built. I'm going to call them Transformers. I don't know what they actually are. But I guess her whole stick was building that. But I don't think a lot of the DP audience is interested in that. And you kind of saw that too, because they were like complaining about watching Brett Keane videos, which I mean, I not everybody likes watching Brett Keane videos, of course. He's kind of boring, but the DP audience surely likes that type of content. And so it was that kind of breaking things. Hello, I was Team Scotty in that fight though. How he handled people like Ryby afterwards was fucking stupid. It made him look stupid. We're on the same page there. I was Team Scotty. I liked Joe when he was first on the show, but when he did his whole spiel against Scotty, which I found funny, I got why Scotty got pissed, because it was like 20 minutes of the same thing over and over. It was taking away from actually doing the show, and this was at a time where there was a lot of complaints against DP not being as good as it had been. And part of that was because they were trying new things that just weren't working. And so I was Team Scotty because part of me liked it that he was willing to stand up for the audience in a way. The ones that were like, hey, the show is kind of falling off the rails here. Because while it's sometimes good for DP to fall off the rails, sometimes it goes a little too far and then it becomes a mess. But I was on his team until I saw the way he treated Ryby. And I know people like can hate Ryby, or it's a love-hate relationship with Ryby from the DP audience. And I liked Ryby a lot, and that's partially because she helped my YouTube channel when I got started again, and she helped plug my stuff all the time. And so, of course, that's going to have a biased effect on me with her interaction there. But, like, she didn't deserve the way she got treated by Scotty and that whole thing. And it lowered my opinion a lot of Scotty. He used to be, like, my favorite peasant besides Ben. And I just did not like how that was handled. I thought it was really disrespectful. And it made me reconsider just working, like, doing work for the show at like no cost or whatnot. Like, hey, I'll put in all this work to make the community better or to submit fan intros or whatnot. But when they get treated like how Ryby did after all the work she got put in and just like kicked to the side because she dared to say Team Joe, I thought that was ridiculous. And it definitely was like, wow, why would I bother to put in work for a show when that happens? So I was glad they kind of readdressed that. And I've been able to work on stuff for them since. So, but yeah, so once that happened, I was kind of like, I was not on Team Scotty. I was in a neutral position where I was like, wow, both were kind of at fault. In all fairness, it pretty much did devolve into people talking about anything, often 2 or 3 at the same time for extended periods of time. Yeah, that was the problem with the 24-hour show at that point. There was eventually too many people on. For me, a podcast, like DP kind of broke my speculation. Like I always felt 2 was best for a podcast. 3 you could do, but anything more than 3 could start to become a mess. And we kind of saw that when Paul got mixed in, because it's pretty clear when you watch it, Paul and Ben didn't get along and they were always talking over each other for the longest time. And when you bring on more and more, it becomes a mess. Joe is coming back with his own segment. He's going to go up to people on the street and ask people random bullshit. See, I like that. See, that's when I heard that pitched on the show, and I was like, I'd watch that. I don't know. Like, I'm okay if Joe came back on the show in a way. But another part of me is kind of like, he kind of needs to stay off the show. But that I can get behind. That would be fun to watch. Plus, I'm not somebody who always wants to see the crazy people segment, the new segment, and all that each and every episode. I like it when things get mixed up a little bit, where there's a new segment on an episode, and that's something I could be into. Could be kill, could be bomb. Let's see how he handles it. Yeah, that's how I'm kind of like, I'm interested. I want to see it. Once I see it, maybe I'll change my mind, but I'm interested in it. Yeah, 4 hosts was too many. They were good hosts though, and the chemistry was there. It was just, it's hard to talk when there's a lot of people on. I never hated Joe as much as the other people. I thought Scotty's reaction to that one, yeah, it was bad. But yeah, I am definitely excited for tonight's Drunken Peasants episode. I love the Salty Paul song. Since I see there's some Paul love, I still have that song. I will still listen to it. It's a good ass song. Sometimes I just like go on my phone and be like, I want to listen to a song, and I think it's because it's toward the top of my playlists, so I usually just end up listening to it because it's catchy. I like it. Yeah, I kind of like 3 as a number for hosts. 4 can work. Definitely though, when you have a guest on, I think it's got to be 3 and a guest, because anything more than 4 can get a little messy. And I didn't really like. I did guest starring on Tap, and I could see somebody being a little like nervous when they go on to a show like that if they're not familiar with how the show works, and they don't want to like talk over people. So of course the guests are going to tend to be a little more on the quiet side. So I could see that happening. I definitely like the inclusion of Endless Jess. I like Endless Jess on Tap. He's been a fun guest to have. 3 is for the manatee. I was really worried DP and DFF would just fracture like a bad divorce and turn into blood sports, but I'm glad that isn't happening. Yeah, I don't watch DFF. It just wasn't my thing, but I don't, if people watch DFF and enjoy it, I don't really care. Like, it's their entertainment. If they're entertained by it, cool. I don't see it as much in the groups, in the fan groups as much, like people hating on them. Every once in a while I'll see like a little bit, but for the most part it seems to have settled down since now the drama's kind of ended. But yeah, so thanks everybody for watching. I'm gonna get going here. Be sure to hit subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Also hit the bell, hit that notification thing. That way you will get alerts before I go live, so you can catch up. So you'll get an alert to your little phone and be like, oh, okay, I can have something to watch. So hit the bell, you'll get notified. Then also, if you do want to become a Patreon, if you want, you can become a $5 patron and get added to Fraxkull here. Fraxkull is my $5 patron right now. If you want to join Fraxkull, because Fraxkull is a cool-ass dude, you can do that as well. But just subscribing and checking out the videos, I appreciate that as well. And sharing them out there too. Let people know what's going on. So I'll catch you guys all for DP tonight, because I definitely want to check that out. And then nothing personal video. You know what? Probably after I eat some food here, I'm going to start uploading that, and that will be posted. And so you guys, if you're interested in that, you can check it out. I have a feeling some people probably won't care for it, and some people might even cringe because, of course, we're acting as gangsters, and one, we're not the best actors, and two, people might not just care about that. But that video will be coming out along with some D&D stuff. So, and then of course, me and Pagan. Pagan's got to realize here soon his communist ideas are bad for society. They're terrible. I think it was Magic Merlin was on his stream telling him the truth, that capitalism is the way to go. So, yeah, I know. I'm hungry. I'm going to be getting off soon after a half hour. See, that's because I know I did it last time too. I try to do it about a half hour before I actually want to get off the live stream, because I know I love talking to you guys. And also every time I usually get to the point where I'm like, oh, I'm ready to go. I get a lot more people showing up to talk. You guys show up at the end. So that's why you should hit your bell icon, and then you'll know when I'm on. But maybe I'll do longer ones eventually. Though 2 hours is pretty long. I'm seeing it's 2 hours now. Damn. I only wanted to do an hour of this crap. But I like you guys so much, and we have such good conversations. Maybe eventually I'll do... I know Pagan does the whole Discord thing, where people can come on and chat from Discord. Maybe I'll get that set up at some point. I'm terrible with Discord. I know my brother could definitely help me set all that stuff up. Oh, the other thing, Pagan, before I go. I don't have... so when I do video... Like you can see here, this isn't like this isn't widescreen. If I do it with both me and you, it has to be widescreen right now, because I don't know how to like screen capture just a portion of your screen right now. And I think you might know how to do that. So if you can let me know, otherwise I'm going to look it up and see. Because right now I use open broadcast software. I don't know if that's what you use, but I know you and Ben are able to like screen off people's webcams pretty well. So I might have a question about that. Otherwise, we'll be widescreen, and it still works. I tested it. It just doesn't look as good as this, because you guys would then get me in widescreen format instead of kind of a standard one here. I can also check in with you, DP Underground. Yeah, thanks. I definitely... That's like my big one right now, is either getting voice calls in or getting a easier window screen crap. You're the man, Admiral. Thanks. Thanks for the show. Later. See you, Uncle Buck. Yep. So thanks for tuning in, guys. I will catch you probably later in the week. I want to try to do another live stream this week. I usually try to do at least once a week, but I want to try to get in 2 this week for you lovely people. So thanks for showing up, guys, and I will see you next time.